In the heart of modern America, a seismic shift is underway, shaking the very foundation of its original traditional heritage. Imagine a nation where the echoes of faith that once reverberated through its streets now fade into an unsettling silence. A silence filled not with reverence, but with the cacophony of conflicting ideologies. Welcome to the era of the unholy alliance, where the sacred is scorned and the secular reigns supreme. But within this clash of values lies a deeper truth, one that beckons us to confront the consequences of a godless society, where the absence of faith leaves souls wandering in search of meaning, morality, and a guiding light through the darkness. This is the divine void. In contemporary America, a palpable shift is occurring. Once a nation with deep-rooted Judeo-Christian values, it is now experiencing what many perceive as a divine void. This phenomenon is exacerbated by an unholy alliance between secular ideologies and modern-day liberal, woke movements that challenge traditional biblical teachings. It almost seems as if certain traditions are being replaced by woke movements in today's society. The implications of this shift are profound, both socially and spiritually, contrasting everything that the Bible has to say.
Developing right now at noon, a shooting happened early this morning and it turned deadly in Miami.
Police arriving on scene and finding a man shot. Local 10 News reporter Syra Anwar is live at the scene.
Police with guns drawn surrounding a house Thursday morning near Miami's Little Haiti neighborhood on Northwest 2nd Street. Less than a block away, children head off to school, unsure of what's happening.
Alarm bells are sounding in Philadelphia about Trank.
You'd see people kind of like walking around looking like animals when their knuckles are touching the ground.
Now Art El Malik's hands and knuckles are swollen to 3 times their natural size from exposure to the animal sedative xylazine, street name Trank.
We begin with Chicago, bursting with pride today. Despite a sudden downpour, thousands cheered, marched, and just plain had fun at the city's 52nd annual Pride Parade on the North Side.
Dozens of atheist megachurches are springing up across the U.S. The gatherings have been successful in Great Britain. Now they're drawing like-minded non-believers in cities like San Diego, Nashville, and New York. The so-called churches look like typical Sunday morning church services, complete with music, hand clapping, and inspiration. The missing element, God.
Hello, everyone! This is Pippa Evans.
And this is Sanderson Jones.
And together,
we co-founded the Sunday Assembly.
We like to think of it as part foot stomping show, part atheist church, all celebration of life.
Being your true, authentic self.
The term unholy alliance refers to the collaboration between various secular ideologies and movements that promote value in stark contrast to those found in the Bible. This alliance includes advocates of radical individualism, moral relativism, and certain liberal agendas that collectively undermine religious traditions. Such movements often champion ideas that directly contradict biblical teachings on sexuality, marriage, and the sanctity of life. Christian philosopher Peter Kreeft argues that the rise of secularism and the decline of religious adherence in the West can be attributed to a cultural shift towards moral relativism and individualism, which has led to the erosion of shared moral foundations. The consequences of this shift are multifaceted. Firstly, the decline of faith leads to a loss of communal values and moral guidelines. As argued by renowned sociologist Philip Brief, the absence of a sacred order results in a culture where therapeutic self-fulfillment replaces traditional moral codes. To tell you the truth, this void is evident in several social trends, starting with family disintegration.
John, I want a divorce.
Divorce.
It's not funny, John.
High divorce rates in the United States have been steadily increasing over the past few decades, contributing to the fragmentation of the traditional family unit. The rise of individualism and the devaluation of commitment have led many couples to view divorce as a viable solution to marital conflicts, contrary to the biblical concept of marriage as a lifelong covenant. Alongside rising divorce rates, there has also been a decline in marriage rates, particularly among younger generations. Factors such as economic instability, changing social norms, and the delay of marriage for career pursuits contribute to this trend. The biblically ordained institution of marriage is increasingly viewed as optional rather than foundational. Society's acceptance of non-traditional family structures, such as single-parent households, cohabitation, same-sex partnerships, and even polyamory, challenges the biblical definition of a family. While diversity in family structures is celebrated as a sign of progress and inclusivity, it deviates from the biblical model of the nuclear family as the ideal environment for raising children. Another social trend being directly affected by this divine void is moral ambiguity. In the essence of a shared moral framework rooted in religious teachings, society grapples with moral and ethical ambiguity. Issues such as abortion, euthanasia, and gender identity are increasingly debated from a secular perspective focused on personal autonomy and rights, rather than the moral absolutes derived from religious principles.
Not the church, not the state. Women must decide their fate.
A bands off our bodies.
The sixth commandment states, "Thou shalt not kill," which in simple English means should not murder. This is a strong theological argument against euthanasia, but does it really condemn merciful death?
Your masquerading as a woman does infringe on the legitimate rights of other people, the rights of women to have their own bathrooms. I don't know if you're an athlete. I'm not much of an athlete myself, but the rights of women to have their own sports leagues and the like. That is not something that you have a right to do, no matter how sincerely you believe the fantasy that you're a woman.
In today's American nation, we just can't seem to collectively agree on most things. This moral relativism contributes to societal polarization and a lack of consensus on fundamental ethical questions. And lastly, we can't forget about the current mental health crisis. Numerous studies have established a correlation between religious participation and positive mental health outcomes. A study conducted in the United Arab Emirates during the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic found that positive religious coping was associated with better mental health outcomes. Muslim participants reported significantly higher levels of positive religious coping compared to their Christian counterparts. Across the entire sample, positive religious coping was inversely related to having a history of psychological disorders. The study suggests that including a focus on religion and religion coping in pandemic preparedness plans may have been more beneficial to those who didn't. Regular attendance at religious services, engagement in spiritual practices, and a sense of community provided by religious institutions have been associated with lower rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide. Research indicates that religious involvement has a modest but robust relationship with lower incidence and severity of mental health. longitudinal studies have shown effects of religious service attendance on various health and well-being outcomes, including depression and suicide. The decline in religious practice, particularly among youth, may exacerbate the mental health crisis by depriving individuals of coping mechanisms, social support networks, and a sense of purpose derived from faith. The erosion of traditional religious communities and the rise of secular individualism contribute to social isolation and alienation, which are significant risk factors for mental health disorders. In the absence of religious communities that foster belongingness and social cohesion, individuals may experience feelings of loneliness, disconnectedness, and existential angst. Religion has long served as a source of meaning and purpose for individuals, providing answers to existential questions and offering a framework for understanding suffering and adversity. The decline in religious belief leaves many individuals grappling with existential questions without satisfactory answers, contributing to feelings of nihilism, despair, and existential distress. In summary, the void created by the decline of religious faith in America manifests in various social trends, including family disintegration, moral ambiguity, and a mental health crisis. Understanding the interconnectedness of these phenomena is essential for addressing the underlying spiritual and existential needs of individuals and communities.
Are you a Christian?
No.
You're not. Do you believe in God?
I don't.
So are you an atheist?
I have an absence of belief in God.
Modern liberal ideologies, often labeled as woke, advocate for social justice and equality, but sometimes do so in ways that conflict with biblical principles. For example, the radical push for gender fluidity and the redefinition of marriage clash with traditional biblical views on these matters. A Christian philosopher known as Alasdair MacIntyre, in his seminal work After Virtue, critiques modern moral philosophy and suggests that the absence of a coherent moral narrative leads to societal fragmentation. He argues that virtue ethics, rooted in teleological understanding of human purpose, is essential for a flourishing society, a view consistent with biblical teachings. This departure from faith and traditional values has created the divine void, a spiritual emptiness that materialism and secular ideologies fail to fill. As theologian and philosopher Paul Tillich notes, the existential anxiety stemming from this void drives people to seek meaning in transient and ultimately unsatisfying pursuits. Renowned Christian apologist C.S. Lewis warned of the dangers of a society devoid of faith, suggesting that without a belief in something greater than oneself, humanity loses its moral compass and a sense of purpose. In conclusion, the unholy alliance between secular ideologies and modern liberal movements have significant implications for America's spiritual and moral fabric. The consequences of absent faith manifest in social disintegration, moral ambiguity, and a mental health crisis. As America continues to navigate these challenges, the wisdom of philosophers like Peter Kreeft, MacIntyre, and C.S. Lewis offers valuable insights into the necessity of reclaiming a coherent moral and spiritual narrative. Reestablishing faith and traditional values may be crucial in addressing the divine void and fostering a more unified and virtuous society. Growing up as a kid born in the early 2000s, a time when the air was thick with nostalgia and the world was quickly transitioning from flip phones to iPhones in the blink of an eye, amidst the whirlwind of change, I never truly grasped the magnitude of its impact until now. Picture it like this. A sprawling suburbia where a middle-class dad and a stay-at-home mom crafted the backdrop of my childhood. Life was sweet, painted with hues of Christian tradition. Bedtime prayers with mom and my little brother were the more serene moments that anchored our nights. God? He was always there, a comforting presence in the sky, as my mom would say. The concept of an all-powerful, all-knowing creator filled me with wonder. It wasn't something I questioned, it was simply truth I accepted, nestled in the innocence of childhood. God's presence was my compass, guiding me through the labyrinth of right and wrong. Whether I was confessing to a broken vase or being a tad too harsh with my brother, I felt that gentle tug of conviction, a reminder that even in my mistakes, there was room for growth. But times have changed. In today's world, it seems we've lost our moral bearings. What was once a nation built on the bedrock of godly values now stands adrift in a sea of secularism. And as our faith wanes, so too does our sense of right and wrong, leaving us adrift in a society marred by corruption and error. If there's anything I'd want you to gain from this video, is to never stop believing in something bigger, better, and greater than yourself. Don't allow for your mind to come to a complete standstill where all hope may be lost. If us Christians are wrong and God isn't real, it still wouldn't hurt to believe in Him, and that's the beauty of being able to view things on a grander scale, far beyond what we cannot see. If you can believe and understand the wind, which you cannot see, neither do you know where it came from or where it's going, you can most certainly believe in the Spirit of God, that of which you also cannot see. All it takes is just a little bit of faith to fill the divine void. I'll leave you with this. The wind bloweth where it listeth, and thou hearest the sound thereof, but canst not tell whence it cometh and whither it goeth. So is everyone that is born of the Spirit.